I started beading when I was 7. And as a 7-year-old, I kind of had to figure things out on my own because there wasn't anybody in my family that was able to show me at the time. And I also kind of was dismissive. I thought, I don't know if I like this beading thing. I just knew that it was one of those things that were akin to being Indigenous. So that was sort of part of my little 7-year-old self-discovery about figuring out what I was supposed to be doing, I guess. Ani Boju, Naomi Dishakaz, Chippewas of Nawash, Nia Shingaming Undunjaba. What I just shared with you in my Anishinaabe language is that my name's Naomi. My nation is Chippewas of Nawash, and our community, Nia Shingaming, is just south of Tobermory, just north of Wyerton. Art for me has always been like a second language. It's how I preserve memories and stories, or how I share something important. All of my pieces have some kind of a story attached to them. At one point, because society had changed so much with the settlement of North America by the Europeans, they had to find ways to adapt. They being the Indigenous communities, they had to find ways to adapt to all of these changes going on. And so there's various things that emerged from that. And the one thing was the production and selling of what we call souvenir or tourist beadwork. But there's a story there. And with the creation and selling of that work, all of a sudden we understand that there's stories of survival, there's stories of resilience, there's stories of triumph. And to me, that's too powerful of a part of our history to ignore. And so I, of course, went down the rabbit hole to discover more about that particular part of our history. And oftentimes I refer to the older pieces that I see as kind of my teachers. Like that ancestral work teaches future generations like myself. Plus, if I'm incorporating elements of that into what I'm making and creating, then that part is being brought forward and it's going to live on. It's important to me that my ancestral work gets recognized and incorporated into the types of things that I'm making and creating as an artist. First of all, this is called the Anna bag, and the Anna bag is actually based on a piece of beadwork that was gifted to me by a lady named Anna. So I always refer to that historical piece as the Anna bag. Well, then I made a pattern inspired by that particular bag. This does not look like the Anna bag, but the shape of it does. So there's that part where I'm honoring something from the past. I'm bringing that forward. But the bag itself actually talks about my happy times when I remember going through the forest and the trilliums were coming out and just seeing the trilliums blanketing the forest floor. So that was a really happy memory for me. That's something that when I look at this bag, it just brings me back to those times, and it's just such a peaceful, happy childhood memory. And at the time, I was just thinking, reflecting on the fact that my ancestors have been here for thousands of years, and I was thinking, we're celebrating Canada's 150, but as an Indigenous person, Canada is so much more than that, and it's so much older than that. So what I did was I incorporated those Canadian flag colors, right? And then I decided I was going to add in the 4 direction colors of the medicine wheel, which is the black, the white, the yellow, and the red. Canada represents so much more than 150 years. And so I wanted to tell that story as well in the making and the creating of this piece. I can say as an artist myself that every time I do a piece of beadwork, there's a motivation, there is a story, there's a reason why I decided to do something in a certain way. I think all of the things that we make and create as humans are important. And certainly for beading, for us Indigenous people, there's a sacredness to that process as well.